Hello and welcome to another episode of Bicycle Touring Talk, number 76 to be precise. I am George Schlackhig,
the one and only,
and I'm sharing my coast-to-coast across Canada bicycle tour with you. Last week we left off in Spiritwood, Saskatchewan, where I was stealth camping. I also showed you some of the challenges Saskatchewan was throwing at me.
See right over there, there's a spot where the grass is a bit flattened. That's where I slept, and it's only 5:45 in the morning. I'm all packed up and ready to go. And the weather doesn't look that great, but it looks like I'm gonna have a tailwind. I had a little snack. I'm gonna try and get going. The tent's wet, I'll have to dry it later. It's all those things, you know. I just hope I get a few days of really nice weather.
It was the morning of Wednesday, June 21st, and due to the nature of my campsite, I was off to an early start. That was good also because Prince Albert was still 130 kilometers away. The ride started off easy as the wind was now blowing in my direction and seemed to get stronger by the minute. I reached the turnoff for Shell Lake pretty fast, but as is typical for Saskatchewan, there was no town, just a sign and a gas station. The lady at the gas station told me that the village was just 2 kilometers off the highway. It didn't really matter to me though, as I had no need to stop there, but I bought a coffee and a muffin. There was a picnic table outside which seemed like a blessing at first, but the wind was so strong that it turned out to be really uncomfortable. Still, it was a good opportunity to pull out my tent and dry it completely within minutes. The gusts were so strong that my bike got blown over with all its luggage.
Look what just happened. It blew the bike over, for crying out loud. I lost another part of my coffee. The wind is absolutely insane here, but it dried my tent in minutes. It's back in there in the pannier.
The town of Shellbrook was still a good distance away, but I made plans to stop there for lunch. The ride was faster than expected, but I was hungry enough anyways. There was a picnic shelter at the Kinsman Park and I made use of it. My idea had been to cook some macaroni and have it with chili, but the wind was too strong to start messing around with the stove. I had sandwiches instead.
Now I'm in Shellbrook at the Kinsman Park, and I'm having lunch. It's a little early. It's not even quite 11 o'clock yet, but I've done over 86 kilometers, and it seems like it's perfect timing because right now I'm sitting under a roof, and as you may be able to hear, the rain is coming down. That's the first today. There was nothing this morning, just a lot of wind. But yeah, it's not a comfortable day. It's cold, it's windy. I got about 48 kilometers to go, I think, to Prince Albert. And that's what I'm gonna do, no matter what. I got all day. Maybe gonna get a hotel there. This wind is making it uncomfortable today.
There was a washroom at the park which finally gave me the opportunity to shave and brush my teeth. Both were overdue at this point. After lunch, I rode through a very long construction zone. At first, the pavement was brand new and awesome to ride on. But then I had to make do with very rough shoulders. As I got close to Prince Albert, I had my first flat tire. Thanks to the spare tube I was carrying, it didn't keep me back for too long, but it was an inconvenience to deal with in the harsh weather.
Yeah, that's why I carry a spare tube, because it's raining, it's super windy and cold, and there's no way I'm gonna spend a half hour now here to try and find where the hell this is leaking from.
In Prince Albert, I went to Tim Hortons, bought a coffee, and used the internet to find a room in town. It was successful with Hotwire at a reasonable rate. The ride to the hotel was only 3 kilometers and the room was like heaven. I had a long shower, fixed my flat tube, and then did some grocery shopping at a nearby store. The rest of the evening was quite lazy. It was a nice break, with the weather forecast for the next day being the biggest concern. Best case scenario, it was going to stay as it was, very windy. But there was a chance of rain and much colder temperatures. This was the beginning of summer, but it doesn't necessarily mean warm temperatures in this part of Canada. For now, I had a cozy room and the heat was turned on. The breakfast at the Comfort Inn was quite good for a hotel breakfast. It included cheese omelets and sausage, waffles, boiled eggs, yogurt, and all the usual items like toast and cereals. I definitely took advantage. Packing everything back up and getting the bike back on the road was quite a chore. I took my time since the weather outside wasn't looking too good. I made one last stop at an ATM and took out some cash for the next few days. Shortly after I hit the road, a truck with the SaskTel logo honked at me. The driver turned out to be an avid cyclist himself. He stopped for a few minutes, gave me some homemade cookies, and we had a good conversation about bicycle touring. Soon it was back to the grind, riding in blustery weather with strong winds and occasional rain. At one point it got heavy. I stopped for a few minutes at a church with a nice roof in front of the entrance.
Yes, strong wind, tailwind, thank goodness, again, and it's rain on and off. Right now it's on. I was warm before, so I took this off, the rain jacket, because I was sweating, getting wet under there without the rain. And 5 minutes later, the rain started and I'm getting cold, and so here I am, put it back on. What can you do? I'm making good time, at least that.
Lunch was at a picnic site that had shelter, but it barely protected me from the wind, which shifted ever so slightly, making it a bit more difficult to ride.
Yeah, this is day number 2 of extreme winds, and I finally found a place to stop for lunch. It's actually really nice. It's a Scandia Club picnic area. Got a little shelter. Unfortunately, the shelter doesn't keep the wind out completely because the barrier is too low, but it's better than nothing by far.
When I was having a particularly hard time, it became obvious that my front tire was way too soft. I stopped right there at the side of the road, took all the stuff off the bike, turned the bike upside down to remove the wheel.
Oh, it's this time again, flat tire. Not totally flat, but it's soft. It's heavy enough so it doesn't fly away.
There was nothing in my tire, so I simply threw in my new patched spare tube from the night before. Flat number 2, and I hadn't found an obvious cause. Finally, I arrived in Melfort. My first stop was at 7-Eleven for a hot dog, then the visitor center, which was actually open. Hey, I was at the end of day 4 in Saskatchewan, and I finally managed to secure a map of the province. There was a campground just down the road on the outskirts of town. Before that, I made another stop at Tim Hortons for a hot cup of coffee and some internet access. When I eventually pulled into the campground, it was quite late. I pitched my tent, cooked the macaroni with chili.
Finally, I got a nice, quiet campsite. It's not raining. Got a hot meal, chili with craft dinner. According to the weather forecast, it may still rain pretty much all day tomorrow, but with a little luck, it won't be any worse than today, and maybe the wind is going to be a little bit less. I only rode about 100 kilometers today. Had one flat tire, and the wind was so cold today it was actually draining me. But now I'm fine, and yeah, I think it's going to be a good night. As long as it doesn't rain, it's all good. After tomorrow, like for the weekend, and after that, sunshine all the way.
The hot meal was just what I needed. It was almost dark when I finally got around to patching my spare tube again. There was a warm shower at the campground, so I took advantage of that before settling down. I was tired to the point where the shitty weather wasn't even bothering me. Temperatures were about to dip below 5 degrees. That's about 40 in Fahrenheit. Not really my idea of summer, but I had a good sleeping bag. Oh, remember last week I was telling you about some challenges I had to deal with in Saskatchewan? The one that really stands out in my memory was dealing with flat tires at the side of the road in strong wind. The flat tires I had in Saskatchewan were by far the most unpleasant ones to deal with. To top it off, when I woke up the next morning, my front tire was soft again. There had to be something in my tire that was puncturing the tube. I patched another tube before leaving the campsite and inspected the hell out of the tire. There seemed to be a tiny piece of glass. Hopefully that was it.
Yeah, and so the reward for fixing the tire this early in the morning is right here. It's instant coffee. Yeah, some of you coffee fans might scoff at me. It's Maxwell House instant coffee, but hey, it's so simple, and I just make it with the little cooker here, and I got my coffee.
Next week I'll tell you about the rest of my Saskatchewan journey. I hope you find it interesting and perhaps even a bit helpful if you're planning a cross-Canada bicycle tour. If so, give me a thumbs up and join me again next week.